right, my people, what is happening in South Africa is actually disturbing. Yes, because what action that the government are taking, they are not taking any action that we can see so far. A lot of people are complaining about the exact thing happening in South Africa. These things have been happening in South Africa many years, over and over and over. Some people think that because of the apartheid, they are having effect from whatever that happens to your grandparents, their grandfathers, or whatever. They have carried along with those things to this present day. The cause of what is happening is what the authorities have not yet identified. Now, let's listen to this man and hear what he has to say about whatever that is happening in South Africa. EFCC spokesperson has actually said something about the xenophobic attacks in South Africa that is actually originating from KwaZulu, the homes of the Zulus. They are the one championing whatever that is happening in South Africa right now. That is what a lot of people are saying. But some people are also saying that those people that are doing these things, that are engaging themselves in this violence, are not from that town. They are not Zulus. There's a confusion over there. Let's listen to the EFCC spokesperson and see what he has to tell the society.
Immigration has as much impact as it's made out to have in terms of electoral outcomes. And that is primarily because it's based on a lot of inhumanity and cruelty. And South African people, in my view, are not people who gravitate to inhumane and cruel politics. So if the EFF, for example, I joined the EFF at a very young age, was saying that let's push white people to the sea, I don't think we would have gotten very far. And if you check in our initial stages, we had to spend a lot of time clarifying that the EFF is not anti-white, because we understand the psyche of the South African voter, the psyche of the South African electorate, that they don't gravitate towards cruel electoral politics. So they are not gravitating towards narratives and rhetoric that is surrounded around being cruel to legal immigrants. That is why you'll see political parties that premise their entire election strategy on migration, your Action SA, your Patriotic Alliance, your ATM, combine their votes, they don't even make 5% of the vote in the 2024 election. So there's no scientific proof that we can credit any electoral losses to that. So until we can see something like that, not that will change our position, but I think we underestimate the humanity of South Africans.
March and March and the kind of broadest set of anti-migrant, let's call them activists, whether it be Ngizwe Ngcono or Jacinta Zuma-Ngobese, why do you think that they have got so much coverage and attention in this moment?
I think it's a matter of a lack of news. South African media is not necessarily creative. And anything that is consistently in the news cycle, in the way that this March and March and all of these other things are, you'll find it's primarily because there's a lack of creativity in the newsroom in South Africa. You're from there, you would know better. But it doesn't seem like they know how to handle this moment. They don't have an objective coverage from it. Can't put two sides of a story. They just cover what it is at a face value, and they don't look into the deeper narratives that prevail underneath that. That is my first initial presumption, that there's simply a lack of newsroom creativity. The second presumption would be that there is a direct interest in promoting this upswell of anti-illegal immigrants or anti-foreigner sentiment by those who have vested interests in promoting an idea that South Africa is pushing an anti-human rights sort of environment. So we know that South Africa has taken Israel to the International Court of Justice. We know the tensions that this country has with the United States of America, and we know the interests which exist in the media, the same interests which may have ties to apartheid Israel or the United States of America. Now, this is a presumption. But that presumption seeks to say that there needs to be a picture painted of South Africa as a country that is violating the human rights of migrants. And if you push that narrative, then you undermine the moral authority of South Africa to question Israel. I think that is something that is a much deeper ideological question that is going on within the media and within the social media space. And if you look at how this movement is spreading, it can't be viewed as organic because it started primarily by utilizing hostel dwellers. And these individuals who are pushing it are transporting themselves, accommodation, flights across the country, trying to spark it. But it is only sustaining itself in Gauteng and KZN where these hostel centers exist. So I think we should look at it at a much deeper level, that there is an interest in making South Africa look like a country that violates human rights. So who are they to question Israel?
Who do you think's funding this? Because what I always think about, you know this, it's so expensive to mass mobilize.
Yeah.
It's really expensive. You've mentioned accommodation. You've mentioned flights. But mass rallies require
transportation, food,
PA systems, public messaging.
Yeah.
Where do you think the money is coming from?
Look, I can't say definitely where it's coming from. Like I can't make that presumption, but I can tell you for free that it is funded from somewhere. It's not organic at all. The manner in which they are operating themselves every week, perhaps twice or 3 times a week, there's some form of mass protest organized. But you can see that these people are not organized as in there was a door-to-door campaign trying to conscientize people, let's go out into the streets. No, these are existing centers of people. It's like organizing a university. So I was a student activist. There's nothing easier than organizing at a university level. If you look at the Fees Must Fall movement, which I was part of, it was easy for us to organize those people because they're in res. So
They're
there. They are organized already. All you have to do is gather them in a common area and say, let's march. And then people will join on the basis of that. But there's always a center at what they're doing. And their center is hostel dwellers. That's why you see all of the Zulu memorabilia, all of the performative actions by these individuals who are trying to create a narrative that it's the Zulus who are leading this. And those people who are leading that process do not represent the Zulu nation. They represent a certain sector of people who identify themselves as Zulu, who stay in hostels. And those are the same people who were mobilized pre-1994 in your 92, 93.
Inkatha,
and the Inkatha Freedom Party, who led violence that almost collapsed the democratic transition. So you must listen to their utterances. You must listen to what they're doing visually. It's not a mistake. It's deliberate. It's a center that was organized previously for a certain purpose. And who's funding them? If you want to find who's funding them, you'd have to track who's controlling the hostels, who are the indunas there, who's able to command attention there. Because these individuals, your Jacinta or Pagalum Tagato, don't have authority in those hostels. There are people there who can command that a hostel dwelling must come out and go back and all sorts of things. Those people are the ones who are receiving the real funding, and they are the ones who are really controlling this process. But we can't name names based on presumptions. But I can tell you for free, it will come out who's behind this in due course.
So just to be crystal clear, for you, the centers of power over, let's broadly just call it this anti-migrant movement, because we must also be clear, it's not about documented or not. It's not about that whatsoever. It's not about documented or not. It's about we don't want migrants here. Is broadly centers of Zulu community power, Zulu male community power, which is hostels in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng.
Yeah. Okay. That's the position that we're making. And this is not to say that there isn't a genuine crisis of illegal immigrants who are committing crime in South Africa. That exists, but it's being weaponized to serve a specific purpose. And it is unfortunate that the Zulu nation is being dragged by few irresponsible individuals who are claiming and purporting to be representatives of that nation, when that nation is explicitly saying that they are not part and parcel of that. I mean, the Zulu king himself has Swati blood in him. He's of Swati origin. I was looking at the podcast of Mcebo Dlamini. Mcebo is from Swaziland. He's had a huge debacle even when he was at Wits University of him not being of South African origin, having a case in relation to that. So it's not a matter of, you're correct, it's not a matter of whether you're here legally or illegally, because when they verify people, authority which they don't have, by the way, they look at the facial, at your skin tone, they look at whether you can pronounce certain body parts in Nguni, and then they take action based on that. So it's hatred, and it's something we should all stand up against, and we should be loud against.
Mcebo Dlamini, who insisted he was a Sisulu until he was found out.
Yeah.
Such a trustworthy person.
So impersonal. So it's quite unfortunate. I don't know where these views emanate from. And he comes out in a way that, firstly, there's this inferiority complex intellectually that you must attack those who are speaking in defense of humanity against the violation of the rights of migrants, whether legally or not. You attack them based on their education. And I don't know what is the reason, but I heard what he was saying about Mbuyiseni. I don't know what value to the conversation that adds, whether someone has a PhD or not, whether they went to Wits or UCT or not. I don't see what's the point of that. And it's going to drive a narrative that education is not important, people who are educated are stupid. Whereas you can see that it's people who understand that the arguments that they're furthering in the conversation don't hold weight, they're not valuable, they're not strong. And in order to fight back the fact that they have weak arguments, they undermine education as the premise. And I think it's very irresponsible. They know that they are objectively making stupid arguments. And because they can't defend those stupid arguments intellectually or logically, they attack education. And it's something that I would not have expected from him. But I saw that he did that, and it's quite unfortunate. I mean, the other chap, Pagalum Tagati or something, says we can give every South African R1 million a year. We can withdraw it from the GDP. You can see there's a misunderstanding of economics. There's a misunderstanding of how society functions and works. And on the basis of us telling them that what you're saying is stupid, then they say it's education. We have never furthered our arguments by saying I'm a graduate at the University of Cape Town, therefore I'm right. They are the ones who dig up our academic backgrounds and try to weaponize them against us. And it's something that we should discourage. People should thrive to better themselves through education, and no one should use one's education to undermine the value of an argument.
So Cyril Ramaphosa finally came out last night.
Yeah.
And I think, like, you and I probably share the argument that, well, okay, I'm not going to make a presumption. Here's how I see it. Radical ANC government state failing for at least a decade and a half, on top of horror show injustice from 350, 400 years of colonialism and apartheid, has created a set of conditions where 40 million South Africans survive off less than 2,300 Rand a month. The dream has not been deferred, it has expired.
Yeah.
There is a pervasive sense of hopelessness because the government has so radically failed so many tens of millions of people. And within that context, scapegoating foreigners is the easiest, immediate thing to do because it does not feel like it is realistic that the ruling government, I mean, the GNU has just perpetuated the same set of material conditions, just now with the former leaders of the opposition in that kind of artifice. And so people are desperate, people are hopeless. And within that context, it's extremely easy for political or political adjacent figures to blame the weakest, most vulnerable people, who, by the way, cannot vote.
Yeah.
So they're the perfect scapegoat. So for then the president to come out way too late and say, hey, don't take the law into your own hands. It's literally a crisis created by decades of ANC government on the back of apartheid and colonial injustice. Is that broadly your view? Are there other dynamics happening?
Absolutely. They're complicit, and they've been complicit for a long time. So for him to come out and try to sort of balance, it's like what the MK party is doing. We know we were at the conference of the left. They did the same thing of saying, we don't have any affiliation with this entity. We don't encourage xenophobia, Afrophobia. But at the same time, we support what they're doing. But at the core of what they're doing is Afrophobia and xenophobia. So there's an encouragement of there's a crisis of illegal immigration. Citizens should protest, but they're not protesting. They're violating the human rights of individuals. So they've been complicit. You're completely correct. Their complicity is not only a tacit endorsement, legitimizing these organizations who are first and foremost racially profiling people on the streets of South Africa, burning people's houses down, stopping children from going to clinics and schools, burning people alive in some instances, doing raids on people's houses from instances without warrants of arrest, and without the authority to conduct warrants of arrest or raids as well. Government has been complicit in this, and they're trying to legitimize it as if it's part and parcel of democratic forms of protest. Stopping a child from going to a clinic is not a form of protest. It's a violation of a human right. So they've been complicit in it, and it's something we should condemn. And I think people like to take the argument that we're demanding of them to be Pan-Africanist. That's not what we're demanding. We're just demanding of you to be human. We agree there's a crisis of illegal immigration. We're not saying believe in Sobukwe or Kwame Nkrumah that Africa must unite. That's something we're trying to teach society. That's something that will take time to get there. But us saying that don't stop a woman who's giving birth at the gate of a clinic because she's from Zimbabwe is not Pan-Africanism. That's human. Us saying you can't burn a person alive on the street because they can't show you a passport is not Pan-Africanism. That's just simply human. Us saying you can't raid a person's house because you suspect that they sell drugs, an old person, they did that in Soweto to an EFF member and raided him, stole his things, this Tranchalax you mentioned earlier. It's not us being Pan-Africanist. It's us saying you are not law enforcement. Be a human being and allow this person to go through the rights and processes of the law. I've been deployed, Dan, in Johannesburg, I think 2022, 2023. I dealt with Operation Dudula when it was first arising, Tranchalax in particular. If you go to a place like Alexandra, because people like to think we're in parliament, we're far away from the actual groundwork or the realities of these things, you can actually see that this is a large extortion ring. So publicly, there's condemnations of illegal immigration. But if you go to the ground, you'll find that people are saying, if you want this spaza shop to continue working here, you have to pay a fee to me. Otherwise, we are going to unleash Operation Tutula on you. If you want to continue in Alex, there was a huge challenge of Tsonga people even being affected, where they said, if you want to continue staying in this household, you have to, in the street, there's an area in Swetla where there's a lot of Tsonga people. If you want to continue staying here, you have to pay a protection fee. So at a surface level, it may look like legitimate cries of anti-illegal immigration. But if you go to the ground, you'll find it's extortion rackets. I saw Tranchalax introducing Gizwe Mchunu to the Basotho people who are illegal immigrants involved in illegal mining in Soweto. He used to be a person who says that those people must go. They shot a friend of his when they tried to confront them dead. And he said the EFF is trying to attack him. He's now trying to ingratiate himself to those people simply because they are going to be able to give him a benefit, thinking that he's the one who's protected them against these violent Zulus. So it's an extortion racket. It's multiple groupings of people who are trying to access economic leverage over a community of vulnerable people. And they'll present themselves as fighting legitimate cause, but actually underneath, they're extracting value and economic value from these individuals, claiming that if you want to stay here and operate in this country, you have to pay me a certain amount of money. That's something that we need to really look into, that it's become part of the criminal networks in this country, the extortion of illegal immigrants under the guise that they're fighting illegal immigration.
Gayton McKenzie and Herman Mashaba, whether it be Abahambe, Mabahambe, or Put South Africa First, that extraordinary concerted social media effort. And we have more than enough evidence by researchers showing that orchestrated bot networks elevating those kinds of positions and centering around Gayton and Herman's tweets for many years, even as they, in Herman's case, tried to distance or denounce from those positions. They ran on security, hardcore, big strongman politics and explicitly demonizing foreigners. Gayton McKenzie now likes to pretend, because I've never seen someone so willing to agree with anything his president says. He is desperate to be an ANC member of parliament. He'd take it for ANC minister, he'd take it in a second. You, amongst others, retweeted this morning and last night when he said that once we get into power, we will go to a hospital and turn off the oxygen. Which is extraordinarily human rights denying, in my opinion, a clear incitement of a kind of sentiment we cannot have in society. What do you think of them? You have correctly identified that they're actually tiny parties, way smaller than the IFP, I think smaller than the Freedom Front Plus. They are barely top 10 parties, and they represent less than 3-4% combined
of the electorate.
Getting so much coverage and attention for these fringe views.
They're a spectacle. It's a media fraternity that appreciates spectacle because of a lack of developing quality news narratives and news coverage. And Herman Mashaba, I think, is the most unfortunate because he's undermining whatever the Action SA vision was supposed to be. I think the Action SA was a vision since he defected from the DA to be this sort of middle centrist suburban political party. Since I think he's failed with doing that and failed with undercutting the DA's vote, he's trying to appeal to a more township urban electorate, and he thinks to be able to appeal to that, he has to adopt this violent and divisive rhetoric against foreign nationals. It's not necessarily working for him. I can tell you now there's uncomfortability in Action SA about how he's approaching these local government elections, how he's identifying whoever is the most violent towards foreign nationals to be mayoral candidates. I mean, in Action SA, you're recruited today and you meet a mayoral candidate tomorrow based on your proximity to this violence or this rhetoric. There's that TV presenter that they're making a mayoral candidate on that basis. He himself is trying to be a mayoral candidate on the basis that he fought foreign nationals, but there's nothing evidence-based that shows what did he do as a mayor of Joburg. He's got about 42 councillors, if I'm not mistaken, in Joburg now. They have not done anything about illegal immigration because that's not within the mandate of local government. But the rhetoric is so loud, it's so performative that people forget that a councillor in Linden is not going to do anything about the borders. Like you're campaigning about illegal immigration and the borders in a local government election when you know very well that a mayor of the city of Johannesburg can't do anything about Beitbridge border. But you're taking advantage of sentiments that you're fueling in South African society, of the frustrations of our people with unemployment, drug abuse, and violence against women and children, which in some instances is perpetuated by foreign nationals. You try to weaponize the sentiment into a vote. So it's something that should be deplorable. And it's how Donald Trump became a president in America. If we want any case study of the products of this divisive, hateful rhetoric, of what type of leaders it produces, we should look at the USA. We all collectively agree that he's a mess of a president. But you must know that the underlying factors behind him rising to become a president is hate. He's going to build a wall. He's going to chase away all immigrants. All of these immigrants are destroying America. Here, they're spreading the same hate. They say Africans are breeding uncontrollably. What breeds uncontrollably, if not an animal? They say they smell bad, they are infesting our communities, they are rats. The same rhetoric used in Rwanda during the Hutu and Tutsi genocide as well. So the inhumanity that they're basing their politics on is something we must fight against. And I think that's what they are. I mean, how does someone say that when they become a public representative, they're going to go and pull the oxygen off illegal immigrants? What politics is that? How does that service anyone? So it's something that should be deplorable. And it's correct that South Africans are rejecting it. It shows that South Africans are not giving in to the inhumanity that they represent.
All right, guys, what do you think about this? What do you think about what actually is happening in South Africa? Let me know whatever you think about this and what you think about the EFCC spokesperson, whatever he has said. If you think he's right or not, just let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching this channel.